it's nice because, there's going to be a mix of calls, and yeah, there's a couple here that we're going to get to shortly.
I'm picking number 6 just to piss you off.
You're picking 6 right now. I haven't even looked at what 6 is. We'll go to it. James in North Carolina. I'm getting an echo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was curious. I'm an atheist. I assume, by definition, you guys obviously favor science. I was wondering how you guys felt about scientists who are blackballed by the science community for having observations that aren't consistent with what would be considered socially acceptable nowadays. Specifically, James Watson, who discovered DNA.
Okay, so I think you're referring to some of the social gaffes that he has made about certain groups of people, particularly women. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about his observations on race.
Okay, so he's...
Who are we talking about? Watson
and Crick.
Yeah. I just wanted
DNA.
to double check because there are others who have similar observations.
Right. So his work is instrumental to our understanding of molecular biology and genetics, and it will go down, and it's still a fundamental aspect of learning for any person studying the topic. But him being regarded as someone of merit only extends to his academic achievements. And so if he's saying crazy shit that is not scientific, then guess what? You're going to be relegated.
So you're saying that it's not scientific what he said about the differences between races?
They're like, specifically what?
Well, that there's differences whatsoever.
Now, there's differences between people, right? But the conclusions that some people try to draw as far as the biology of races only goes so far, right? Because I can say there's a difference between me and my brothers, right? But if you're trying to group it together all African Americans, well, that's erroneous, right? Because we're not one homogenous group.
The grouping, the process of deciding who fits into what particular category is where I think...
And who determines that?
Well...
Genetics.
But we can define things however we want. We can say, okay, we're only going to look at people with beards or who can grow a full beard. And I'm looking at a wonderful full beard out in the audience that, puts mine to shame because mine will only get maybe 2 inches longer than this and it's done.
It's Santa Claus.
So we draw that circle and then we can discuss what things they have in common and what things they don't have in common. And so obviously I'm sitting here with Drag and there's a difference in melanin in our skin.
Right.
There's a difference in hair type. And so you could draw us in 2 different circles and talk about those things and who we have more in common with. But it's also easy to put us in the same circle as males in the, I'm assuming, in the 21st century, trace our genetic heritage back and find out where we have differences. And if we are 99 point, whatever percent identical, 99.9967324, I think it is.
Close enough.
I'm just making that number up. The point is that even if you were to find, let's say we were going to say women are smarter than men. Just we've figured it out. Women are just generally smarter than men. So what? Because the difference that we're talking about there, if there were to be one, isn't particularly significant and doesn't enlighten us on anything. So I'm not familiar with what Watson said with regard to race. I'm probably heard about it at some point. We lost the caller. No wonder I'm not getting interrupted.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Do you know what he said?
Yeah, I know what he's talking about. There was actually my seminar in biology course went over some of those things, and I particularly remember some statements about Photo 51, and I just forgot her name too. Doggone it, someone knows what I'm talking about. But they went in on this woman, and she was not fairly characterized as far as her demeanor, and people didn't want to work with her because of their perception that, she's ice queen, this, that, and the other. But I mean, this is, 60-something years ago almost. So,
sure.
That sort of stuff, looking back, that's not acceptable, it's not professional, and that should have no place in any business or any lab or whatever. And so folks are upset because they feel that this guy or that guy should not be looked down upon because he has this particular view. Which, granted, I kind of see the point that just because someone disagrees with you, but when some of these views are actually harmful to society and they're just generalizations and they're not actually reflective of reality, then guess what? You know what? Not all your beliefs everyone's going to be cool with.
Yeah, I mean, he called in to say that I'm discounting, science.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. If he didn't understand that group white guys are not a homogenous group, African Americans are not a homogenous group. If he doesn't know that, he might want to go back to biology class.
Yeah, this is one of those things where, and I don't think this will catch anybody particularly by surprise, I am fine with discussing things within the context in which they are currently being discussed. So, for example, I'm fine with the notion that race is predominantly a social construct, that the things that unite us are far greater than the things that divide us, and the distinctions we're talking about, how much melanin in somebody's skin or what your particular lineage is. It's incredibly difficult. It's not all African Americans a homogenous group, but all people with a certain skin tone aren't even a homogenous group. They're from all over and everything else. And what people want to do is we want to be lazy. We want to be able to take anybody and anything and put them into a convenient bucket so that we can pretend that we understand the sum total of what makes them them. And so it's very easy to say, hey, I watched the Atheist Experience today and there was a white guy on with a black guy. Because that's the buckets we want to put people into. Yeah. Because it allows us to dismiss people. It allows us to pretend like we know and understand people. I'm not going to do the absolutely monumentally ignorant thing of saying, I don't see race. Anthony Penn will clarify that over and over again.
Do not say that, people.
You absolutely do see race. It's absurd. You see differences between people. It's when you go through those classifications, how you want to use them and what conclusions you reach, that's where the problem is. Because if there's anybody out there who thinks that I'm not eclipsed on scientific knowledge sitting here today, you not only need to go back to biology class, you should probably just stop talking for a while and read a few dozen books.